Hi, welcome to the Pathfinders podcast. I'm here with Pete, and today we're going to make a very interesting discussion around the evolution of past lives. How we've all had past lives, but particularly, I think, moving from the space of where we see them as this one at a time kind of thing to how they can all unfold all at once. So there it is. Dive in, Pete. What do you got?
Well, Mike, this whole everything happening at once thing that is so hard to understand while we're here in linear time. I mean, we know that time is a bit fluid, and we've talked about that in these podcasts before.
Yeah.
But these past lives, what first came to me many years ago was when I first did past life work, people were going and they were actually reliving and they were revivicating these incredible things that had happened to them. Like 2000 years ago, there's a guy lying on the floor of the Colosseum being eaten by a lion, and he's describing it, and his arms are flailing around. I mean, he's not here; he's there 2000 years before. So that really starts us to look at time in a different way. That we can transport our consciousness across time and space, which means the only way that can happen is if time is fluid.
Yeah, I hear that, Pete. And for the purposes of really looking at our purpose, what purpose does it serve to know that you're scared of lions and to avoid them, right? So one of the things that really appeals to me in this is in doing this kind of work is that we get to see what is the essence, what is the message, what's the thing that we contain, that we are trying to solve, that we keep coming back to these lifetimes again and again, setting up these situations. What are the patterns that we keep holding on to that we don't need to one at a time to find out? That's just guesswork.
Mm.
Yeah.
I mean, you're right. And for me, what past lives offer us, they offer us two things. And the first one is to completely eradicate our fear of death. And if the biggest fear that we know goes, what else can there be? So for me to know that life doesn't end when this body's finished, that is very freeing from a lot of the fears that we have in life. That's the first one. And the second one is to know that, we have a lineage of our soul, and everything's holographic, as we know in the universe. There's a lot of conversations about the holographic universe. But for me, the smaller you go, the way things still happen. Like we might have various careers within a particular lifetime, or we might have various events within a particular lifetime, or various roles that we play. So we might go through 4 or 5 marriages. So that's like they've reincarnated their marriages 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
So if you can have these sections within a life, why would you not have them as lives as well? If we're looking at this linear construct, for us to be learning things, we learn from the day we're born to the day we die. Why would we not do that over multiple lifetimes? It just makes sense.
Yeah, well, I found that to be true in sessions is to look at that thing that we are keep trying to understand in ourselves, to see the patterns that we keep forming, like we didn't quite get it, come back and do it again, all of that. But before we get to that, though, I do want to dive into this notion of death and to overcome the fear of death, because I just think it's such a topical thing at the moment, such a beautiful thing.
Mm.
Because when we look at like all the different personality typing structures, there's so many, right? But all the
Yeah.
ones that have a negative side, right? If you look at there's 12 personality types. There's the thing with the I can't remember the name of it. There's been so many I've forgotten. But the point is that I'm making is that in each case, we have this aspect of ourselves that if we can just get over it, like they say, okay, do this. In order, we do this in order to avoid this aspect of ourselves. We do that in order to avoid this aspect of ourselves. But all of those negative aspects all boil down to the same thing, which is essentially that if we don't avoid that, we're going to die. Yeah. However we die doesn't matter, right? But that's how it all can all be boiled down to. And so when we move to this space of really making peace with death, that death's actually not a thing, that we will still be here, that we'll still come back, that we'll still have people that know us, that love us, all of that, that it gives us so much less information or less data around what we should be avoiding,
Mm.
and how we should be behaving and go for what we actually love.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, you get into the whole purpose of life thing, don't you? You know, why are we here? Why did we come back? What am I here to do? And by understanding where we've been in linear time elsewhere, that helps us understand sometimes really key strengths that we bring, that we carry as characteristics within our soul. We might be helpers or teachers or ones who inspire others. We might be leaders. You know, these characteristics we carry from lifetime to lifetime, they're the ones to know that, you know, I really want to lead things in this life. Well, to understand from the lineage of your soul, you've been a leader in 50 other lifetimes. That's got to be a really good head start on what you're going to do in this life.
Yeah,
So as soon as we, you know, we're a chapter in a very different book. Our soul is a book and we're a chapter. Why be the chapter when you can be the whole book? And there's so much wisdom in that book. So,
yeah. And there's so much that we pick up in all of those past lifetimes as well. Like there are actually lessons learned,
mm,
and it is interesting. I think if you start to go back and look at what those lessons are, what do you then bring into this lifetime? What did you bring into this lifetime?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And you know, what are your metaphysical strengths that you can bring to bear? Imagine you've got a problem within this life, but you've got all of these incredible resources across the linear of your soul to solve that problem. I mean, it's like you throw up the garage door and you've got every power tool that's ever been invented in there to do the small job around the house. I mean, this is the power of who we are at the level of our soul, that the experiences that we have across that whole lineage, it's all there and ready to go. And we can just tap into it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The so going back to the other side of things, this notion of who we truly are as a soul and the book of our soul, and then the story or the chapter of this lifetime. And so I'm led to ask you in this environment, what are we missing that we come back and forget our previous lifetimes?
Hmm. Well, my take is that we are starting to remember within lifetimes now.
Hmm.
For our generation and maybe even the one before, people have been accessing past lives. I mean, people have always done it down through the ages. And some of the great religions of the world actually embrace reincarnation as a philosophy, even if they don't have access to the memories themselves. But something's opening up now that allow people to know who they've been before. Past life work has been, as I said, around for a long time. It kicked off in 1956 with the Morty Bernstein's book, I think it was, The Search for Bridie Murphy,
Yeah.
1956, and that started a whole generation of Americans asking about these things. Brian Weiss in the 1980s with Many Lives, Many Masters. I mean, more and more people are now getting that understanding. For me, it's about the transcendence of humanity to a new consciousness means that we need to see ourselves beyond this body of who we are.
Yeah.
Once you've had a past life experience, you know that you've been these other people before, and you no longer get locked into the here and now and saying this is all that matters. And if we know that we reincarnate, I mean, what does that do for us as champions of global causes? You know, if we're leaving a better world for future generations, there's every chance that we might be those future generations. So it's a hell of an incentive, isn't it?
It really is, Pete. It really is. And that reminds me of a couple of things actually. So, I mean, I remember that the American Indian traditions were talking about seven generations back, seven generations forward in every major action that they take and what decision points they were. So it does shed a whole bunch of really interesting information around that. But can we go back further? Can we go forward further? What does this look like?
But for me, it's not just about going back, but going forward, but going out. And over the years, I've often asked people, have you ever had life on another planet? And just about everybody has said that they have. And when you think about it, if you take a logical view of the universe, we are one tiny planet in one solar system. The Milky Way is limitless.
Mm.
Okay, the speed of light takes 2,000 years to get to the edge of the Milky Way, and when one galaxy in a trillion others. So how big is it out there? And why would we be the only planet that can sustain life where people can incarnate? I mean, there are limitless places in this universe for people to incarnate. And once we understand that we are cosmic in our soul lineage, that we are something that is not necessarily always human as well, it really starts to break down some of our restrictive mindsets about who we are and what this planet's really about. We're universal citizens at the level of our soul, and we've chosen to be on this planet in these times for a particular reason. Once we understand what that reason is, then we can make a contribution to this planet, the evolution that's happening now across the whole of humanity. But it all starts with that self journey, Mike, doesn't it? It's that self reflection. It's that look inside to see who we really are.
Yeah. And I strongly believe actually that we, especially in the beginning, we really need to seek somebody else because we can't see our own nonsense. Like we palm it off as all these other things, it's imagination, blah, 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 not realizing what we're truly capable of with that. And, it's funny because you talked about the planet and the Milky Way and the galaxy and the universe, and we still have this concept that it's very physical. But I remember the first time I was asked that question, how many times, and it was a particular topic of the session, but one of the things that came up was, well, at least two lifetimes were just energetic,
Yeah.
at a particular place, and so then we don't need that same structure in order to live, in order to thrive, because any planet could do, any old rock could do. It's energetic. It doesn't matter. So I am really struck by how all of this unfolds in all of these infinitely different ways. And yeah, so I touched upon the future lives, which I'd like to touch upon and get your 2 cents worth on that.
Yeah.
But I feel like at the same time, all of these things are kind of unfolding at once, because once we're outside of this particular construct of Earth, we seem to enter into a space where time disappears, time and space disappear.
And consciousness doesn't wear a wristwatch. Like, I mean, that's consciousness doesn't understand time and space the way we are. This incredible web of consciousness that is all part of life that we're part of as well. And for me, the future lives, it's hard to understand that in a linear construct because, I think there are two major laws of the universe, and one is that consciousness seeks to evolve, and that's us, and that free will must be honoured is the next bit. Now, if we move into a future life and we're working from linear time, then how do we know that we're not going to miss out on an opportunity through our free will when we make a decision that splits us off into different realities in the future? So I've always found the future life thing to be a little bit muddy. Let's go forward in time. And I've seen snippets myself as a client over the years when I've done some of this work. But I think that's a possible outcome that we can move towards if we choose to. But I don't think it's necessarily the self-fulfilling prophecy because that's too minuscule in terms of the multiverse that's continuing to unfold. I think that we have limitless potential and so many options available to us. If we do too much of the future life stuff, you think, well, that's the destination. I'm just going to head towards that. And you miss out on the view of all the other opportunities on your way to that one destination.
Yeah, so I might be jumping the gun because I know we did talk about following a sequence, if you like. But is it then more important to look at the alternate realities, like the Gwyneth Paltrow sliding doors / concept and how that plays out?
Yeah, and I think if we can honour our free will, everything continues to evolve and to expand into different realities. But under our own free will, we can ask to be seen one of a really high vibration, and we can connect with that. And whilst we may or may not be collapsing timelines into that one self-fulfilling prophecy, if through our own free will we do choose that one and we want that to be, then we can gravitate towards it for a greater purpose. Then that possibility is still there. To just pull anything out of there and to head towards it, I don't think is helpful. But to actually have an intention that helps to steer you through the multiverse towards that higher vibration in a way that serves both you and humanity, I think that's a worthy pursuit.
Yeah. So with this work that it is the topic of this particular podcast, this past life kind of evolution, journeying backwards to see all of the layers, I guess, that we have been bringing with us or been developing over time. How is that, or can that be somewhat of an aha moment, if you like,
Yeah.
when you go back and you really land this stuff of, I've been carrying that for how long? And of course, it may or may not even be you. Um, that's affecting it. It's that the consciousness has shifted in so many ways since then. How does that relate to just solving, say, today's problems, for instance?
I think it's important to get practical with this work because you can go down the metaphysical wormholes and never come out again.
Yeah,
So let's just say, we all know that one of the great fears in life is public speaking. I remember my dad before he got up at my sister's wedding to do the father of the bride speech, and he was shaking like a leaf. God love him.
yeah,
And he'd been talking to people all his life, the local JP and all that. But when you've got to get up in front of 100 and something family and friends, it's terrifying. A lot of people. So let's just say somebody has a fear of public speaking, and in their parallel lives, if we call them that, these other lifetimes that are outside time and space, past lives, if you like, if you want to work linearly, let's just say that there was a lifetime of a great orator, a great speaker in the parliaments of ancient Greece, Rome, or whatever that may be. And they can connect with that energy of what it's like to hold the attention of a group in the palm of your hand. And that version of them comes forward, and there's a beautiful exchange of energy and learning. And, you've done this before. We did this in another lifetime, etc., etc. This is what it feels like. Step into that body, speak to that audience, absorb those frequencies, step out again, and come back to a life forever changed. I mean, there are some great things that people can do and have done in other lifetimes. To import those skills and abilities from other places into this one can be an incredible repository of wisdom that simply needs to be drawn.
And so, is your instinct that we should go and find the trauma first, like as a hypnotherapist type person? You want to go back and fix whatever's wrong.
Well, I guess there is, but if you go looking for the shadows, you normally find them
Yeah.
because they've created your own intention to do so. Sometimes it's helpful to get an understanding for a moment of insight that, oh, well, one of the real reasons I'm having trouble in my clinical practice as a kinesiologist, for example, in this life is because I've been burned at the stake 8 times. And you might get a sense of 8 of those people there, and as we move outside of time and space and outside the human body, we can work in a way that is more virtual reality rather than actually having to go into the trauma and feel the flames tickle your feet 8 times over. I mean,
Yeah.
no one wants to do that anymore. But if you've got an understanding of that pattern, you bring those 8 people forward and you help them to heal in whichever way that, the facilitator works with, and you set those 8 personas free out in the multiverse, then rather than carry the baggage of 8, burnings of the stake, you actually carry 8 bunches of freedom.
Hmm.
And that can be something that you then take into kinesiology practice and you set yourself free and you do it on behalf of all the others. So it's a very powerful thing, this multi-dimension, because, I'll be able to say to those 8, I'm going to finish the work that you started because they don't burn people here. So I'm going to do this for all of us and I'm going to take it forward in a way that I couldn't do by myself.
Yeah,
I mean,
beautiful.
we can set up some powerful metaphysical experiences this way.
And that is a kind of a transcendence from all of that trauma without having to re-experience it.
That's it.
And then take things into a place where all of that energy can be repurposed in this lifetime for what.
Yeah, exactly. And I know a lot of therapeutic approaches they want to go back and talk about what's wrong.
Hmm.
And you lived that already. Why do you want to go back there again? And I came to the conclusion many years ago when I shifted out of therapist into facilitator that to actually take a person back to recall a trauma creates another trauma from the remembering of the trauma.
Yeah,
So this whole revivicate and naturally, we'll just go back to that place and it'll just release itself. My experience is that that's a little bit old happening. It's not in the best interest of the client with the duty of care.
yeah, and that creating more trauma too, I believe, just keeps us in the loop where we are constantly stuck and have to fix things to move past it.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you just create more things that need fixing in doing that.
Yeah.
So I do love this approach because it is moving people out of that space where they need to be fixed and into the space where essentially they already are.
Yeah. That's it. That's it. But, I don't think any of us really understand the gold that's waiting for us. And, at the end of our soul lineage is the rainbow, and the gold's waiting for us at the end of it. I mean, this is powerful beyond measure, the impact that this can make in people's lives, but still we're dumbed down into believing that this life is it.
Yeah, we are. We are. And for all those people that aren't watching this because they tuned out 15 minutes ago, congratulations to those who are left, because I think honestly this is where the world is going, is this level of heightened awareness, and I see that there are more and more people who say, for instance, those who come and they've already had a couple of past life experiences, they talk about the pain. But when you go to people who, especially younger people who have a natural memory of those things, we naturally move into these higher states again and again. And I love that at the end of these sessions, all of them, that we offer the opportunity to pass whatever wisdom we got onto collective consciousness. That's a really special thing.
Absolutely. And it's about building the wisdom of that huge library up there. And everybody can visit the library. And just by incarnating, you are the library card. So why not go and borrow the piece that you need and have a look at it and learn from it?
Yeah, beautiful.
And put the book back and try another.
So what book have you got?
Exactly. Well, speaking of books, actually, Mike, today's book, it's not a very well-known one. It's called Past Lives Unveiled, and it's written by a guy by the name of Barry Eaton. Now, I know Barry. Barry's a long-time radio broadcaster and personality out of Sydney, Australia. And I've known Barry for many years, and we actually worked together on the project behind this book. But what I love about this book is Barry's written a whole trilogy in the past on some of his own past lives. But in this one, he wants to take it a little bit further, and he's actually using some of the research from the Michael Newton Institute in this book. Michael had the case of these prehistoric sisters, and one went back to a tribal life in prehistoric times, and then the sister came the next week and she went back to the same, and he worked with them separately and then cross-validated their stories in the most interesting way. So he did that in this. Also, he mapped some of his own past lives that he actually worked with me. I visited him. He was living in Mullumbimby at the time. I went and stayed a few days with Barry, and we did some very deep and profound research. And we came up with a lifetime in ancient Greece, which he got all the details of, another one in the Civil War, which he worked through in a lot of detail. But interestingly, there was another lifetime when he went off-world, and he went into a life of a being called Leda, who was moving across time and space to study civilizations in the universe that had fallen due to technology. And he was learning the lessons of that. And he had certain messages that he brought in through Barry as well. So, I mean, this book's got a little bit of everything, but it's not for the faint-hearted. It's not a run-of-the-mill past life book, but Past Lives Unveiled by Barry Eaton. I had the great honor to write the foreword for him as well. This guy's the real deal.
Beautiful, beautiful. And I would like to encourage anyone who's watched this far to really think about what is it that keeps showing up in your life, again and again and again, those patterns. And particularly if if you have had a past life experience or two, and those patterns are still in that life, for instance, or those limitations are still in that life, to really make note of it. They're the things that are pushing us past this to transcend in all kinds of surprising ways. And I think have a session, reach out. Both Pete and I do it. Make notes, write your books. Write notes in your books. to really sit with those unsolved mysteries and notice what is trying to come out is my point. What is trying to come out through these lessons in all kinds of transcendent ways, and what is it that you would love it to become? That's where I'd like to get to.
Yeah, I love that. Powerful intention. Yeah, it changes lives.
It does. Beautiful. Thanks, Pete.
Great. Thanks, Mike. Looking forward to our next conversation.